Muhammad Nawi, or Dr. A, and I am the Assistant Dean for External and Global Engagement for the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, University Technology Malaysia, and I am also the President of the APRA Malaysia chapter. The APRA is the Association for Professional Researchers and Academicians, and I am here today to welcome you to the 6th Asia International Conference 2020. And have we got a treat for you, ladies and gentlemen, because if you remember the last time that we saw each other, it was last year in the jewel of the capital of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, in KLCC. And as we all know, it's pretty hard to top KLCC in terms of physical location, but here we are, topping it in a virtual location, because as we all know, due to the restrictions for this COVID-19, and COVID-19 has affected all of us, I believe, throughout the whole world, in whatever sector we're in, whether we're academics, whether we're professionals, whether we're just families, whether you are normal people going about your everyday lives, COVID-19 has affected you, has affected me, has affected us all in some way or other. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I truly believe that what we do here at Connecting Asia is we truly aim to bring people together, no matter rain or shine, no matter pandemic or no. This is what we do, and we are here to provide you all with a platform to share, to connect, to research. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for today, for the opening ceremony, after the opening ceremony, we have a treat for you, because we have a few very big names in store for us. Among them would be Professor Dr. Yiri Jaromir Klemesh. If you've been following us since Langkawi 2 years ago, you would know that he has always been there for us, with us in many of our programs. Next, we have Professor Dr. Ilhan Ozturk, and we have Professor Dr. Marco Sarsted, and we have Mr. William Lowe from Emerald Publishing, and of course our favorite, we have Dr. Muhammad Imran Qureshi, the founding director of Connecting Asia. And all this is just for today. And don't go anywhere, because at the end of the session today, we are going to ask you a question. Maybe 2, maybe 3. Who knows? We'll see. But there will be 3 cash prizes. So wait for that. Don't go anywhere. Don't hide with your mute button and your cancel video button and then go take a nap. We know you're napping. Don't do that. So, at the end of it, stay with us, stay with the program, and you're going to have a good time. And we really hope that you're going to learn something, because, ladies and gentlemen, every year I do this, I learn something new. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to proceed with the program. Before we go on to the next section, again, I'm just going to repeat that I am Dr. Abdullah Muhammad Nawi, Dr. A, and I will be your host for today and for the entire session of the AIC 2020. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Pleased to welcome those who are with us from years till now, as well as those of you who are new to the family of Connecting Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, we started our journey of Asia International Conferences in 2015 with 155 participants, and the family of AIC grew with the passage of time, as in December 2016 the number of participants grew up to 250 participants from 12 different countries, and keynote speakers were 3 different countries in that conference. And in 2017 we expanded more and our participants reach up to 311 with 12 keynote speakers from different parts of the globe. All these 3 conferences has been done in UTMKL. Ladies and gentlemen, after that 4th Asia International Conference have been done in beautiful island of Langkawi in 2018, and in that conference 455 participants registered from 43 different countries of the globe, and our speakers were from 4 different continents including Africa, Europe, Australia and Asia. And then in 2019, 5th Asia International Conference held at Kuala Lumpur KLCC, the famous Twin Tower. It was around 385 participants in that conference. Ladies and gentlemen, after that the situation changed due to this pandemic, as most of the conferences were done online. So taking this opportunity, this year 2020, we are conducting our 6th Asia International Conference online, and in many ways virtual conferences offer a better experience, and this opportunity allows us to expand our network, and we invite world-renowned keynote speakers from 12 different countries, and they conduct 10 valuable workshops in the series of workshops. And here we are today in the opening session of 6th Asia International Conference. So ladies and gentlemen, there are 3 categories of presentations: 5-minute 5 slides, normal presentation and poster presentation. AIC also provide opportunity to publish in variety of journals. So ladies and gentlemen, Connecting Asia welcome you all on the great platform of Asia International Conference 2020.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed, can I just ask the technical team, do we have the visual of the panel here? Can the audience see the panel?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the session where we meet the people who you're going to be spending your time with, the specialists, the experts from around the world. And first and foremost, we have one of my favorite people in the whole world to work with, because I've worked with him for about 2 years already, since meeting him in Langkawi for AIC a couple of years back. Ladies and gentlemen, we have, for the first guest, we have Professor Dr. Yuri Jaromir Klemisch, and I'm really hoping that I got that name right. So I'm just going to go over there live to the Czech Republic. Yuri, can you hear me, Yuri? Can you hear me? Awesome. All right. It's great to see you again, as always. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, Professor Klemisch, or we call him Yuri, he is one of a kind, and his specialty is in publishing in high impact journals, and if you've been to his workshop, you know what I'm talking about. But before that, let's hear more about, let's get to know a little bit more about Yuri, about Professor Klemisch, in this very short montage that we have for you. Cue montage.
Professor Dr. Yuri Jaromir Klemisch is at Brno University of Technology, Brno, Czech Republic. Professor is head of Sustainable Process Integration Laboratory, SPIL, NetMesh Center, Faculty of Mechanical Engineering, Brno University of Technology, Brno, Czech Republic, and Emeritus Professor at Center for Process Systems Engineering and Sustainability, Vasmani Peter Catholic University, Budapest. Research funding attracted over €21 million is a co-editor-in-chief of Journal of Cleaner Production. He authored nearly 400 papers, a number of books published by Elsevier, MC Hill, Woodhead, Ashgate Publishing, Cambridge, Springer, Wiley, VCH, Taylor and Francis. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Professor Dr. Hiri Harun Kelemesh.
So, can you hear me with the background? Because I can see just connecting.
Okay, fine, sir.
So, okay, I will start, yes? Okay, so I will start now. Okay, fine. So, I'm starting. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be with you again. I'm talking from the center of Europe. And today I would like to deliver you one of my presentations. And the presentation is about minimizing footprints and emissions for supporting sustainability. And as this is a very comprehensive topic, I invited two of my key researchers, Dr. Yivan Fan and Dr. Chao Wang. We are coming from Sustainable Process Integration Laboratory SPIL in Brno. And this first slide is showing you where Brno is. I believe you might have heard about Prague, about Central Europe. So Brno is the second largest city in the Czech Republic, which is a small country but very historical, and it's very, very far from Asia. We got as a SPIL this family of researchers. As you can see, the SPIL is very international, and we've got researchers from very many different countries, from Europe, and many of them from Asia. And beside this family tree, which is on the left-hand side, we've got also a lot of collaborators. And our collaborators are from University of Maribor, Slovenia, from Hungary, from the UK, several from China, and also a number of collaborators from Malaysia and Philippines. Many of them have been connected to my place where I stayed for a long time, from UMIST, Manchester. And this is the group under pandemic restrictions. We are at the moment suffering something which is called third wave, and we've got a lot of infected people and unfortunately a lot of people dying as well. So we are already about 10 months working from home, but we still very much stick together, and we are able to deliver reasonably good research results. And now to the presentation. Well, the presentation is about emissions and environment. And the special issue of today's presentations are so-called footprint. I will tell you a little bit more about the footprints during the presentation, but in a short way, footprint is the quantification of environmental impact based on life cycle analysis. It means from the cradle to the grave, from the very beginning to the very end. You can see here CO2, which is considered as the major enemy because of global warming, but there are some other emissions, effluents, pollutants, which are also measured by footprint. So the history of footprints is starting sometime early in this century, and the father and pioneer of it was Ariel Hextra, who started with water footprint. Unfortunately, Ariel died last year, quite young, and I would like to dedicate today's presentation to his memory. He introduced the water footprint, but after it became very popular and many researchers introduced different footprints. At the bottom it's the citation of our work from 2020, which has been now cited nearly 700 times and which opened the new era of footprints. There are very many footprints, more than 200, but I would like just to show you those who are most popular. Probably most popular is something what media and politicians call carbon footprint, but it's actually carbon emission footprint. But it should be more precisely greenhouse gas footprint, because carbon emissions, mainly CO2, are responsible just for 2/3. But there are also energy footprint, water, ecological footprint, nitrogen, land, social, business footprints, and many others. What are the main issues about the footprint? Well, main issues are to quantify impacts on the environment. It's very important because life cycle assessment is a nice methodology, but it's not providing quantification. And the quantification is expressed even in monetary equivalence, it means in money, or in some cases it can be expressed on damages expressed in money. And part of it is also eco-cost, ecological cost, which can be negative, which means reducing the footprint, and also eco-benefit. So this equation on the bottom is saying that eco-profit, improving the ecology, equals eco-benefit minus eco-cost. Because we would like to minimize the impact on the environment, but we can't do it at any cost. Because in this case, it would be very nice, but nobody would accept it, because money matters. And this is a very nice picture, which we took from one of the last works of Ariel Hextra, who is the last author in Europe and also in the US. Usually the supervisor is the last author, because this is the manager, and manager is not pushing himself or herself on the very top. It is the same like when we publish something with PhD students. In many cases the supervisor is the last one. And this is telling you what are the most important footprints. I haven't got time to go one by one, but you can watch this picture and you can read also the paper. And besides CO2, I would like to stress some very, very dangerous footprints for human health, which can be nitrogen, ozone, PM 2.5, PM 10, and also PM1. PM stands for particle matters. And what are the sources of pollutions and pollutants? You've got this pictograms and pictures. They can be stationary, which are from industrial plants, our living quarters, from various production, but Mother Nature is producing some footprints as well, and sometimes a very considerable footprint, like volcanoes and geothermal footprints. And we as human beings introduced also some mobile sources of footprints. And you can see different air pollutants, and they create something which is very unpleasant, haze, which is also kind of the smog. In Western countries it's called smog, which comes from sulfurous smog. In Beijing we call it haze, and it's composed on many different issues, pollutants, and also toxic substances, and also PMs. About greenhouse gases, when I said that the greenhouse gases are just two-thirds, about that CO2 is only about two-thirds of greenhouse gases, you can see it. It's this blue, and after there are some others. And the others are methane, especially. Methane is nearly 22-fold stronger greenhouse gas than CO2, and NOxes, but also some others, including ozone and VOC and others. So if we would like to fight this global warming, we should consider the picture in full. And emissions are not only caused by countries which are producing it, but they are actually caused by countries which are consuming. For example, China, it's producing a very large amount of products and exporting them. You can see this flow 1, for example, which comes to the US. Flow 2 goes to the European Union. And we shouldn't say that China is dirty, because China actually makes a lot of products for us, which we are consuming. So footprints should be assessed by consumption, not only by production. Now about footprints of renewables. There are some persons, especially media, which are saying renewable energy is 100% emission-free or zero emissions. But it is not true, unfortunately. If you look, for example, for photovoltaic power, okay, it has got not a huge impact on climate, which I mean on global warming, but has got very big impact on land, ecosystem and materials. Also concentrated solar power and even wind power. Of course, natural gas, coal, we've got much bigger footprints, but also renewables have got substantial footprints, and we should consider them. Water footprint, which was the original discovery and formulation from Avril Hextra. Water footprint is more tricky, because if we've got, for example, greenhouse gas, CO or methane, it's one substance. But we can get different waters, blue, green and gray. Blue is coming from the ground source and from rivers. Green is coming from rainwater, and gray is unfortunately what we are creating as human beings. And you can see now that it's not only gray water. It can be very colorful, but by definition it's called gray. So Oops. Yes, next very important footprint is the nitrogen footprint. A nitrogen footprint, by definition, it's amount of measure of reactive nitrogen, not N2, because N2 is not reactive nitrogen, it's harmless, and it's a lot of it in the air which we are breathing, but especially NOxes are very unpleasant and very dangerous. And they've got a big influence on the ecosystem. You can see here some listed. And also it can get very big influence on human health. And I already mentioned smoke haze footprint, which is caused by air pollutants as NOxes, SOxes, VOC, and particulate matter. And impact is huge. Impact is much worse than CO2 because it's proven that in megacities 5 to 10% of population is dying prematurely, too early, and compared it with COVID-19. COVID-19 is very bad and we are facing major pandemic, but in no way the number of deaths is 5 or 10% like from pollutants. Now, if we would like to do something with reducing footprint, we should think how to use natural resources. And one big issue at the moment are plastic. Plastics are big friend. Without plastics, we wouldn't have computers, we wouldn't have mobile phones, we couldn't fly to the Mars, we even couldn't fly by airplanes, but we couldn't successfully fight COVID-19. But what is the problem? Problem is plastic waste. And plastic waste is also quantified by plastic waste footprint. Look here on those examples of something which is very, very much discussed, shopping bags. And many supermarkets are saying now, we would like to be green and we will go to the paper. But is really paper bag the greenest, most environmentally friendly option? If you look here on energy, on greenhouse gas emissions, and also on freshwater consumption, probably the best and winner is reusable polyethylene with 40% recycled content, but if it's used many times. And this is a very important issue, reuse. Reuse, recycle, there are 10 R's for making plastics and other material sustainable. How we are measuring interrelations between different kinds of footprints. It's now a buzzword called nexus. Nexus is the relation and interrelations between different issues. This is water, energy, and greenhouse gases, because everything relates to everything. And if we sometimes save energy, like on the previous slide, we can need more water. And if we save water, we can need more greenhouse gases. And this is example of European Union. What is happening with EU by cross-border trades? And again, EU is actually one economy at the moment. It's already without the UK. As you can see, this British islands disappeared because they are within how many days now? Within less than 15 days leaving the EU. But you can see how it works with interconnection of CO2. And you can see that, for example, Germany, which likes to be green, is actually using a lot of footprints, importing footprints from other countries. And this is similar with energy. There are many countries which are living on energy which is imported from other countries, but it's imported as power, as electricity, but also as embedded energy in products. And you can see on this slide that Germany, France, and Italy are major beneficiaries because they are getting energy from others, and the Netherlands is the provider. As concerns water, it's slightly different, but it's again Germany, France, and Italy, which are dominant consumers. And when you hear the politicians of some countries praising the countries, how green they are, I think we need to look on such a picture and see if they are really green or just taking benefits from the others. So as concerned embodied emissions, it means those are emissions which are inside the products. You can see again which are countries which are benefiting and which are countries which are supplying. And it differs. For example, we took embodied energy consumption per capita, and here is Sweden. And if it's embodied SO2 emissions per capita, Sweden is much lower. Again, the France as well. Do you know why? Because the energy is greener. Sweden has got enormous amount of energy, mainly from water, France from nuclear power, so they are not making too much CO2 emissions. And this is a graphical representation of the nexus between water, energy, and food. And food is another big issue, because we can't live without the food. And for food, we need a lot of water, a lot of energy, and a lot of land, and of course, labor. And as a mankind, and Europeans especially, we are not behaving nicely. We've got a lot of unused food, wasted food. And you can see what impact of wasted food is on blue water footprint, on carbon emission footprint, on land footprint. It depends country by country, but usually between 40 to 70% of produced food is somehow wasted. It's not consumed up to the date when it's safe to be consumed, or it's bought, stored in fridge, and after thrown out for some reasons. So what can we do for reducing the carbon emission footprint? Well, what we can do is to reduce food waste. This is very important. And of course, we can do many other things. As you can see, operational efficiency, shift from natural gas, renewable generation, power business, new fuels, carbon emissions capture and sequestration, and some others. Natural things are important, which are forests and everything what is green, but if not managed properly, they can actually produce CO2. Now, a few words about hydrogen. Many politicians and even industrialists are saying hydrogen is a very clean source of energy. First issue, hydrogen is not a source of energy. Hydrogen is a carrier. it is the same as electricity. And of course, if we can get so-called green hydrogen, hydrogen produced, for example, by wind power, with very small emissions, it would be good. But if we look on the situation at the moment, 99.6% of global hydrogen comes from fossil fuels. So what? Hydrogen, for example, for cars, is a kind of a battery. The car is finally run usually by electricity, by power, electrical power, which can be either stored in the battery or stored in the hydrogen tank, and electrical power is produced by fuel cells. So we have to be careful about hydrogen. It is still not ready, and you can see how much and what is needed from the beginning to hydrogen to be used by fuel cells, or in sometimes we can also use it for combustion in some power engines, and each of them has got losses. And the big problem of hydrogen is for transport. It has to be lignified. At atmospheric pressure, it's lignified about minus 253 degrees centigrade, very few kelvins, and it requires a lot of energy. So for this reason, it's stored and transported under pressure. And for pressure, again, we need energy. To get a real fair environmental picture, we need to calculate the footprint. And calculate the footprint, what emissions are needed, not only for hydrogen, but for road carriers, for ocean transportation ships, for pipelines, for the storage. And if you look on this huge ship, to make it from metal, it requires a lot of energy and raises a lot of footprint. So, as you can see, hydrogen is not 100% clear. If it's properly developed, it might be cleaner than petrol or diesel. But it's not enough to make the statement. It needs a lot of research and a lot of investment. But if we are considering mass use in cars, what is the result of exhaust of the car? Well, it's water steam. And water steam is actually the far the strongest greenhouse gas. Normally, it's not a big problem, but can you imagine a huge city with 10 million people who are driving, say, I would be modest, 5 million cars, and each car is emitting steam, water steam. It can contribute to changing the climate in the city. Of course, if the city is somewhere in very dry weather conditions, it shouldn't be a big problem. But if the city is already wet, quite wet, as for example Taipei, I experienced Taipei, there is a lot of rain, some additional water steam can be also a problem. Now, if we are talking about green hydrogen, I've got here some very present information, because you can do it even in real time. How look European countries? Some of them, as I mentioned, Sweden, for example, or France, they are already green by electricity. But some others, you can see Romania. You can see also Germany. Germany is considering themselves very green, but a lot of electricity is made by coal, but especially other fossil fuels. It's the Netherlands, and so on. And now, because at the moment the conference is organized in Malaysia, let's take a close look on Malaysia. And you can see that Malaysia is coming to the right direction with hydropower. But gas and coal are growing. And well, the others, this green is very, very negligible. So in that case, the hydrogen from Malaysia, if it's produced, wouldn't be green at all. And also it's important how energy intensive is our life. And Asia in average is about 12 kilowatt hours per day and per person. But Asia is huge, and when you put it to one kettle, you know, they are very different countries. But Malaysia is actually at the average. China is still below, Europe is above, and Japan is very much energy intensive country, so contributing a lot to pollution. Now, what are the sources of energy? Sources of energy, I've got this from this quite interesting website. You can see solar energy. There are some big, well, comparatively big solar power plants, which I especially like because I've seen it and it's a new principle. Current largest is in India, but compared with others, they are not considerable. Biomass, we've got in Great Britain a huge biomass fired by wood plant, which can provide enough energy for nearly 3.5 million people in the UK. But the question mark is about the logistics. If you've been in the UK, or this is especially Great Britain, which means England, Scotland and Wales, there are not too many forests. So where is the wood coming? It has to be imported. Geothermal, US and Italy, we've got good geothermal, but I jump out and I would like to show you this Moroccan plant, which is very impressive and very high-tech. The design is by Siemens, and it has got big advantage because those are mirrors which are computer controlled and they are following the sun, and they can follow the sun from sunrise to midnight to sunset. But also when it's a sunstorm, which in the Sahara Desert are actually quite big, they can move like the mushroom and prevent to be polluted by the sun. This is how it looks like. You can see the size. But let's go more. Let's look for wind farms. But those 5 top wind farms are still only projected or under construction, hopefully. So the major massive sources of energy are coal plant, you can see it here, oil and gas. And in the corner is the present world electricity mix. And well, coal is the king, and the solar, geothermal, biomass, wind are just little children. So we still got a long way to go. Nuclear are much more massive. And here you can see two unfortunate nuclear power plants, Chernobyl and Fukushima. And if you compare it with the others, you can see that they are really massive. And when Japan decided to shut down the nuclear power plant, they lost a lot of energy. And how to replace it? Well, of course, we can talk about green and solar and wind, but it's no way to replace it. So the replacement can be coal, can be gas, can be oil. So it's the question mark if it's really wise to shut down and go out from nuclear energy. And the absolute king is the hydropower. But unfortunately, not all countries have got the chance to build something like Three Gorges Dam in China, or this far the largest hydroelectric power plant, which is on the border between Brazil and Paraguay. And now we are coming how footprints are embedded into circular economy. And this little picture is developing circular economy. As many authors are making circular economy just a circle. But circular economy should be full of small circles. And small circles is industrial ecology, heat integration, reuse, recycle, and all this. So circular economy would be only possible when the big circle is filled with as many as small circles. And in this case, we again can make a footprint and nexuses on different levels. And it's the usual problem, the larger, the better. But when we go to the worldwide scale, the precision of the data is not a big. And the smaller are the boundary, the system boundary, the more precise we can be. So it's always a question mark, and it requires further studies. And last few slides, because my time is going to be soon over, are about the pandemics. We, as mankind, are suffering a lot. Malaysia is now not too infected, and I hope it will stay like this. China, where it started, is now more or less okay, but we are not able to be sure. The most influenced country are United States, and COVID as crisis, as everything what is bad, introduced a lot of activities. It encouraged activities, and activities in development of technology, but also activities in research. And our group also contributed. And we wrote in April, and it was fully published in July, the paper of minimizing the present and future plastic waste, energy and environmental footprints related to COVID-19. And the paper has been very, very successful. It means that probably we managed something what is useful for others. Another paper which we dedicated to study of impact is the energy and environmental footprints of COVID-19 fighting measures, PPE, personal protection equipment, disinfection and supply chains. Because as you can see in the bottom corner, to fighting COVID, we need enormous amount of personal equipment, which is mainly based on plastics, and we need billions of it. Masks, respirators, test kits. We need disinfection, and it had to be emergency transported by planes, which is very, very energy intensive. But now, with hopefully starting vaccination, it will also need a lot of energy, a lot of plastics, a lot of water. Another big issue with COVID-19 is waste management. And we published another paper in Science of the Total Environment, which is dealing with influence of COVID on the waste management. It has got two major influences. One is destruction of waste management practices because of pandemics. And the second is how to deal with infected waste, this dangerous waste. You can read more here. And also it's interesting to deal with issues how to minimize the interaction between people. And this is what has been done together with our collaborators from Singapore, a Star Institute, where they studied and suggested way how to organize car parks to minimize interaction between people. Not inside the car, but when you park the car, the person needs to move to his target destination. And the less people I meet on my way, the better, the lower chances to be infected. So I'm coming to the conclusion. It's a long way to circular economy. It's a long way to make less harmful impact on the environment. And life cycle assessment is important. Environmental impacts, which are widely used, are important, must be quantified. Because when we are engineers, when we are managers, when we are dealing with the economy, always quantification matters, and finally the money matters. So I'm coming to the end, the acknowledgement to Spill project, and also big thank you and acknowledgement to all our collaborators in research, which are UTM, Malaysia, University of Manchester, University of Maribor, Hebei University of Technology, Tianjin, Xi'an Jiaotong University, Fudan, University of Waikato in New Zealand, Pasmani Peter Catholic University, and not definitely the last, De La Salle University in Philippines. And we would like to invite you within 10 months to our press conference. This year it was virtual in Xi'an, but enormously successful. And we hope to run it next year as a hybrid, because we found that online conferences are also good and very efficient, but we are human beings and we still would like to meet each other. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Jiří Jaromír Klemeš, for that informative session, and I'm sure that we have all learned something really, really valuable here. Thank you very much again. A pleasure as always. And so, ladies and gentlemen, now we're moving on to our next guest. Can you hear me, Dr. Öztürk? Professor Dr. İlhan Öztürk, can you hear me? Is he up on the screen right now? He's there? Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Professor Öztürk, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear.
Great. Thank you very much for being here. Everybody, I'd like to introduce you to, all the way from Turkey, we have with us Professor Dr. İlhan Öztürk, and he is going to be sharing something really, really interesting today. But before that, again, let's see a montage a little bit. Let's get to know a little bit about Professor Öztürk.
Professor Dr. Ilhan Öztürk from Faculty of Economics and Administrative Sciences, Keck University, Turkey. Dr. Ilhan Öztürk is Professor of Economics in the Faculty of Economics and Business at Keck University, Mersin, Turkey. In addition to academic duties, he is the Director of Higher Vocational School. His research interests are in the areas of energy and environmental economics and international economics. The total number of his articles published is more than 180. Of these articles, 160 are listed by ISI Web of Science. Dr. Öztürk is an ad hoc reviewer for various leading international journals and sits on the editorial boards of several refereed international journals. Professor Öztürk is also a highly cited researcher in 2018 and 2019. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, meet Professor Dr. Ilhan Öztürk.
Thank you, technical team. Now, Professor Dr. Ilhan Öztürk, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Abdullah. Dear colleagues, Assalamu alaikum and greetings from the Turkey. On behalf of the organizing committee, it is my great honor and pleasure to welcome you all for this prestigious 6th Asia International Conference 2020 Malaysia. I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to share with you my knowledge and experience during these events. AIC 2020 conference brings together domain experts, researchers, scientists, professors, industry representatives, postdoctoral fellows, and students from all around the world, and providing them with the opportunity to report, share, and discuss scientific questions, achievement, and challenges in management, economics, information technology, and education thema. I hope that this conference will deliberate on various issues that need to be addressed while increasing production and come up with the recommendation that will lead to increasing production. Lastly, we would like to thank all of the conference participants for their contributions, which are the foundation of this conference. So I wish you a productive conference. In my 20 years of research as an author, editor, and reviewer, I have observed several shortcomings in the article preparation and the submission process that often lead to research being rejected for the publication. So today, I would like to share some of my experiences and knowledge with you instead of talking on a technical topic, since the participants are from the different areas such as economics, finance, management, education, and IT. And I hope this conversation will be more beneficial for all of you. As you know, in this competitive environment, in order to get a good job, high salary, and being recognized in the global world, you must have papers in the impact factor journals. What I mean by impact factor journals, IC journals, we are indexing SSCI and SCI, and have a good number of the citations. As you know, the quality of your research is determined by the number of the citations you received for your paper that has been published. The most important criteria here should be the quality of your paper and the journal you publish, not the quantity of papers you have. The journals that you should target to publish your paper should be indexed in the following databases. One of them is the ICI journals, which are indexed in SSCI, Social Sciences Citation Index, SCI, Science Citation Index, and AHCI, Art and Humanities Citation Index journal. The second one is the Emerging Source Citation Index, which is also a journal of the ISI, and you can see the list of the Web of Science journal, which has an impact factor journals in the following website, in the following link. The last one is the Scopus. It's also internationally indexing database and has an impact factor. So you must publish in any one of them. The top journals are the ISI journals, and the second one is going to be the Scopus Index journal. As an academics, you must register and have an account in the following two websites also. One of them is IDIs and REPEC. It is mostly for the economics and finance faculties. The other one, you must open an ORCID account, which is www.orcid.com. You must have an account. You must have an account in the Puplons account. And the last one, and one of the most important, you must have a Google. You must have an account in the Google Scholar. In order to have an account, you must have a Gmail account, and then you register yourself in the Google Scholar. In this website, you will see your papers, the citations your papers receives, you received, and also the people who cited your paper. So, if you register into this website, your visibility in the world academic area will increase. So you must have an account in this website. It is really very important. For the economists, for the finance, management, and some other faculty members, I have some potential areas for the future research. So these are the hot topic, and I believe if you prepare any paper on this topic, most probably you can get acceptance from the journal that you are going to submit it. The first one is about the environmental degradation on energy and growth nexus, and the second one is about the climate change related subjects, or about the global warming, the role of green finance in energy growth nexus, smart cities as a drivers of green economy, happiness economic instead of the GDP. Here you calculate the gross domestic happiness. It is really a new and hot topic. The other one is about the carbon footprint, or maybe carbon management, social and environmental cost of globalization, energy growth nexus, and role of energy diversification, financing the green economy, environmental justice, climate justice, financing renewable energy, green management, and green marketing. These two topics are the hot and the top topics in the literature. Any paper related with the green management or green marketing have a high chance or possibility of publication in the top journal. The other one is the impact of geopolitical risk and uncertainties in the energy demand. These are the really hot topics that you can maybe publish very easily. As I mentioned at the beginning, I am editor in the several index journal, and also member of editorial board, and also author of more than maybe 200 index articles. So I have a good experience and knowledge why most of the papers are directly rejected by the editor. We call it as an immediate reject without sending your paper to the outside for the reviewer. The first criteria is mostly you get an email by saying that your paper is not accepted because your paper is not in the scope of our journal. So before submitting any paper to any journal, you must look at the scope of the journal and look at whether your paper is in the scope of the journal or not. Another way of checking whether your paper is in the scope of the journal that you are planning to submit is to look at the references of your paper. And in the references, if you cited some papers from that journal, it means that your paper is in the scope of the journal. So mostly your paper will not be rejected by saying that it is not in the scope of the journal. The second one, and one of the most important criteria, is that high similarity rate. In other words, we call it as a plagiarism. So in many journals, they are saying that the similarity rate must be less than maybe 20% or maybe 25 or maybe 15. So before submitting your paper, you must check it with the plagiarism software and look at it about the similarity rate. And it must be at least less than maybe 22% or maybe 20%. So your paper will not be rejected with these criteria. The third one, most probably, editor can say that your paper has no contribution in the international level, so it may have a limited information. Maybe you are using the old methodology, or maybe it is related with a national level, so it is not an international level related article. And the last one is about the poor language quality. Most of the papers they are rejected. Why? Because most of the people who submitted their papers are not native speaker in English. So the language quality of your paper most probably maybe it's low. So your paper must be edited maybe by your friends or by another editing companies in order to not get any rejection from the journals due to this. So as I said, at least maybe 40, maybe 30 or maybe 50% of the papers are rejected directly without the review process because of one of these criteria I explained here. So if you can improve it by taking these criteria into consideration, then you will increase the chance of the publication of your paper at least by maybe 50%. So when you submit your paper to any journal, you must follow a manual or a guideline before the submission. What are the criteria that you should take into consideration is about the selection of a journal. You must select a right journal What I mean here, you must select a journal that your paper is in the scope of the journal. The second criteria in the selection of a journal, you must look at it about the review process and the duration. Like, what about or in how many months your paper is reviewed and you get the decision about it. In some journals, it took very long time. So you should look at the journal website and look at some papers about when it has been received, when it has been accepted. So if it takes a long time, I think you shouldn't submit your paper to this journal. The other one, the other criteria when you select a journal is about the frequency of the issues. So I mean whether it has been published monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, or one time in a year. So you should select a journal that the frequency is higher. I mean, if you submit your paper to a journal that publish monthly, it will be better for you, or at least maybe bi-monthly. So selection of a journal is very important criteria. The second one is select a topic. In order to select a good topic, you should follow the literature, and then you have to be updated about the topics that you study, or you want to submit your paper to any journal. So it must be a hot topic. The third one is follow the journal guideline. Most of the journal, they have a different paper format. So before to submit your paper to any journal, you must follow the journal guideline and prepare your paper accordingly. For example, you didn't follow the guideline and you submit your paper. Maybe after 1 month, or maybe after 15 days, or maybe 2 months, you will get an email from the journal by saying that please revise your paper according to our journal guideline format and resubmit it. What does it mean? It means you lost at least maybe 1 month or 2 months. So you must follow the journal guideline. The other criteria about the organization or a structure of your paper. This structure of the paper is changed according to the journal a journal, but mostly the best structure of the paper is consists of the 5 sections. The first one is the introduction section. The second one section is the literature review section. The third one is the methodology and data section. The fourth section is the empirical results and discussion, and the last section is conclusion and policy implications. So if you organize your paper according to this structure, it will be really get a good marks from the editor or the reviewer. Another important criteria, you must apply a recent methodology. So if you apply or employ a new methodology, then very easily your paper can be published. The other criteria is about the language quality. You must edit your paper before submission to any journal, and the last one is about the plagiarism check, and then after you follow this manual, it really easier, and you have a really high chance of publication of your paper. So it's all that I want to give you as an information. I hope it will have a contribution on you, and wishing you a productive conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ozturk. And as Professor Ozturk talked about just now, we need to see how important it is for us to conserve the environment and for us to be able to harness the power of renewable energy. So thank you very much for the very illuminating session, Professor Ozturk. Thank you once again. And now, ladies and gentlemen, just as a reminder, we are here live from UTM-ICC, from the headquarters of Connecting Asia, right here in Johor Bahru in Malaysia. And if you're joining us wherever you are in the world, again, I bid you good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm hoping that you guys are having a wonderful time and that you guys are pumped and excited for us to go ahead and do more. And I'd just like to give a special shout out to the technical team headed by Mr. Noman Malik. Noman, you're doing a great job, fantastic. Thank you very much for this. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to the next person on the agenda. And here with us we have, all the way from Germany, Professor Dr. Marco Sarstedt. And I'm really hoping that I pronounced that right, Marco. Did I get that right?
Okay.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, before Professor Sarstedt gets his views in, let's learn a little bit more about him in the montage coming up. Roll cue.
Good afternoon and very warm welcome to 6th Asia International Conference 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, and thanks to Connecting Asia for making it possible to invite our next speaker, whose name is worth of 1,000 million conversations. So with special excitement, I'm pleased to welcome our speaker, Professor Marco Sarstedt. Professor Marco Sarstedt chaired as a professor of marketing at Otto von Yerke University, Magdeburg, and he is adjunct professor at Monash University, Malaysia. He regularly teaches doctoral seminars on multivariate statistics, structural equation modeling, and measurement in world-renowned universities. Professor Sarstedt is best known for his work on partial least square structural equation modeling, which has gained wide dissemination on social sciences. He co-authored 2 widely adopted books, named as A Primer on Partial Least Square Structural Equation Modeling and Advanced Issues in Partial Least Square Structural Equation Modeling. Professor Sarstedt is the recipient of 5 Emerald Citations of Excellence Awards, and he's also recipient of 3 Emerald Literati Outstanding Paper Awards. And in the research category, he ranked as the 2nd most influential business researcher in Germany. He is also 2-time recipient of William R. Darden Award of Academy of Marketing Science. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor Marco.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, you have to allow me to share my screen.
Okay, sir.
Well, this is also one way of doing it. When the organizers asked me which topic you want to talk about, I thought about talking about something that's actually closely connected to my research and also to the pre-conference workshop, which will be run on Friday. So I decided to talk a bit about recent advances in PLS-SEM, so partially square structure equation modeling, more specifically about predictive model assessment. And to set the stage a bit, let me show you a little picture of this young man here. And well, might not look familiar to you, I guess. Well, at least the picture didn't look familiar to me either, but this is actually a man called Edmund Halley. And Edmund Halley was an English astronomer, geophysicist, mathematician, meteorologist, and physicist. So like really a wizard of his time. And he contributed some very important research work to astronomy. For example, he traced the transit of the Mercury across the sun, and also his works really facilitated the drawing of star maps. He actually added Isaac Newton's, proving Isaac Newton's law of motion, and based on his works, basically he traced the periodicity of a comet, which later became known as Halley's Comet, in his 1705 synopsis of the astronomy of comets, which was a seminal work by him. Well, in this work, which you can basically see here, lots of numbers, lots of complicated figures, he actually wrote the following: "Hence I dare venture to foretell that it will return again in the year of 1758. So it is, in this case, a comet, and he wrote this in 1705. So unfortunately, Halley did not live to see his prediction actually come true, but it actually happened. And here you see a picture of this Halley's Comet upon his first appearance in our solar system, which was 1986. So it was actually not the verifiability of the explanations that had a lasting impression on the people's minds. It was actually the prediction of this particular event. Yeah? So while the causal explanation that we did with all these numbers and graphics and so on really facilitated the understanding of the phenomenon, in this time here, the periodicity of the comet, it was actually the exact prediction that was like making the impression here. And in the prediction notion is actually nothing new, and it's been a fundamental building block of science, like mirrored in this statement here by Richard P. Feynman. I can safely say that nobody understands quantum mechanics. Yeah, he was a Nobel Prize winner here, but yet its unmatched predictive accuracy actually helped spark the semiconductor revolution. Similarly, in the social sciences, like in marketing, for example, which is my area of research, there's been the notion that prediction is of fundamental importance. Like here in this seminal work in the Journal of Marketing, if marketing research is to perform a useful function, it must be put finally in the terms of predictions for the use of management, with the notion that marketing is actually an application-oriented science which needs to derive actual recommendations for practice. Also, from a more, say, scientific, philosophical point of view, there's lots of support for prediction. It remains true that if we predict successfully on the basis of a certain explanation, we have a good reason and perhaps the best sort of reason for accepting the explanation. So, but yet, if prediction is so important, well, we would actually expect that this is what people do, right, in the social sciences. But actually, if you really think about it, this is not really true. I mean, what we typically do is simply test some type of model in terms of we check for relationships, we maybe look at the model fit, we look at the explanatory power, the R square, but we don't really look into prediction. And this has been recently bemoaned in an article in Science. It was about the prediction explanation of social systems. And this article, we also said, well, the prediction-driven explanation, so you look into prediction, then try to explain the phenomenon that predicted, have proven uncontroversial in the physical sciences. But social sciences, in contrast, have generally de-emphasized the importance of prediction relative to explanation. So rather than asking whether a theory can predict some outcome of interest, the accepted practice in social sciences instead asks whether a particular coefficient in an idealized model, slight criticism here, is statistically significant and in the direction predicted by the theory. So what we do is actually look into explanation, but we don't engage in prediction. Well, I think you can mirror this, right? And it is, on the other hand, a bit surprising because actually, when we write up our articles, we often define prescriptive statements. For example, like in our article here in the Journal of the Academy of Marketing and Science, on one hand, we set up a set of hypotheses, which you can see on the left-hand side, H1, H2, H3, and then we test these hypotheses using complicated statistics, but at the same time, in the managerial implications sections, we derive concrete recommendations for practice. And these concrete recommendations for practice generally read like the following, like our results suggest that managers should do this and that. Or if they do this and that, they will benefit from this activity as follows. So what we typically do as researchers, we frame these managerial recommendations as prescriptions. They foreshadow a certain event that will occur if a certain activity is being implemented. And this is a predictive statement, but yet we never test our models from a predictive standpoint. So this is what this talk will be all about, and we're going to be talking about prediction in the context of structural equation models. So this is a structural equation model which might look familiar to you. It comprises the so-called structure model and the measurement model. The structure model defines relationships among unobserved latent variables, so variables that measure concepts which can have multiple meanings, like attitudes, perceptions, or intentions. And we have the measurement models that actually define how these latent variables are actually being measured using indicators, which can come from survey data. They can also come from other data sources, secondary data, you name it. So what we typically do as researchers, we specify such a structural equation modeling based on theory and logic. Then we gather data in order to test whether these hypothesized relationships are actually observable in the real world. But in order to make a statement whether these relationships are actually observable, we need to test the model, right? We need to estimate it. And there are broadly two ways of doing this, which you actually might be familiar with. There are so-called factor-based structural equation modeling methods and composite-based structural equation modeling methods. So factor-based is what we typically would define as covariance-based structural equation modeling. Here, the researcher assumes that these concepts that he or she wants to measure in the structural equation model can be faithfully represented by factors. So factors, like in an exploratory factor analysis, are simply defined based on the indicator correlations, more precisely based on the common variance, the variance that is shared by these indicators. That's what makes them factors. These correlations are actually used as input to estimate the model. So it all starts with these indicator correlations, more precisely the common variance, so the joint variance of these indicators. So computer programs such as AMOS, Literal, and M+, routinely carry out factor-based SEM. Well, the other school of thought, which basically originated from the same researcher, which was Herman Wald, is composite-based SEM. And there are actually numerous composite-based SEM methods out there. You can basically conceive a regression with some scores as a kind of composite-based SEM method, but more prominently here, of course, partially squares, structural equation modeling, or generalized structural component analysis. So here, the concepts that are supposed to be measured are not represented by factors, but by composites. So what's the difference here? I remember with factors, we're actually using the common variance to identify these constructs. When we use composites, actually we're using linear combinations of indicators to compute actually scores of these constructs. So these composites then representations of the underlying theoretical concepts. So there's much to be said about these two methods. When should the one be used? When should the other be used? What are the implications for model testing and so on? Yeah, so I'm not going to be talking about that. What I'm actually interested in here is the efficacy for prediction. And factor-based SEM methods have a little problem because they produce scores of the latent variables which are indeterminate. What does that mean? Well, it means that there's an infinite number of different scores which will basically produce the same result. So the model that we saw on the previous slide will produce some estimates. There's an infinite number of different scores that you can generate which produces the exact same result. That's a bit of a problem because if we talk about prediction, well, what do we want to predict? We want to predict scores, right? But if these scores are not clearly defined, well, then the method is more or less unsuitable for prediction. This has basically been shown a long time ago by Schönemann and Hagen, who used the factor scores in a model to predict the dates of Easter Sunday in a certain time period. So these scores were actually representing intelligence factors from the US population. So what they did, they took a certain correlation matrix of these intelligence factors, reproduced the scores in such a way that they were able to perfectly predict the dates of Easter Sunday. So needless to say that there's no relationship whatsoever between these intelligence factors and the actual dates of Easter Sunday. Just to showcase that CB-SEM or covariance-based SEM methods are grossly unsuitable for prediction. This is also what has been mirrored in the literature. So composite-based methods, on the other hand, here the situation is a bit different. Remember, composite-based means that the procedure takes the indicators and forms linear combinations of these indicators to generate actual scores of these constructs. Factors. Yeah. And these scores are by definition determinate. So there's something that we can predict. For those of you that have been working in the field, maybe, this is not related to the question of whether we can measure something reflectively or formatively. This is on a different level. So when we talk about reflective and formative measurement, meaning what's the relationship that we assume between indicators and constructs, this is something that happens on the measurement theory layer. What we are talking about now is how these measures are actually being represented in the statistical model. So this is the type of model estimation. So because of this, when your aim is actually to predict, you need to use some type of composite-based SEM method. So when we talk about composite-based SEM and prediction, there's lots of confusion out there because people simply talk about prediction without actually engaging in prediction. And here's why. Because there are actually two types of prediction. There's the so-called in-sample prediction and the out-of-sample prediction. So in in-sample prediction, we're actually using the data to generate estimates, and then we're using the exact estimates to predict the data that we have just used as input. The following figure shows this. So let's assume we have some sample data here on the left-hand side with 4 predictors, and let's just work with 5 observations. And we have 2 outcome variables, y. Again, 5 observations. So when we estimate this model, we would use the entire information that we have, 5 observations, estimate the model, we get our parameters, weights, loadings, and beta coefficients. And with these information, we actually estimate the outcomes. Yeah, so we are combining these estimated parameters with the predictor values to generate predictions or estimates of these outcomes. So the estimates, well, we just computed them. We also know the true outcomes, so we just take the difference, which are the residuals. These are shown here. And these residuals are then serving as a basis for assessing the explanatory power or the in-sample predictive power of a model using, for example, the R-squared. However, this is not actually what prediction is all about. It's called in-sample prediction, but I personally believe that this is a bit of a misnomer, because this is actually not what prediction is. Prediction means that we actually try to predict unseen data, new data that was not used in the model application. And this is what it looks like. So we take the sample data and split it up into a training sample and a holdout sample or testing sample. So the training sample is actually being used for model estimation. So same thing as before, but this time we don't use all 5 observations, but only 3. Again, we get the weights, loadings, and the betas. Now, we are combining these estimates with the predictors of the testing data, the holdout sample, to generate predictions for the outcomes. So again, these 2 observations, the last one, observation 4 and 5, were not used in the model estimation. But with these predicted outcomes, we can now compute the prediction error, because obviously we know the true values, the true state of y for these 2 observations, 4 and 5. And the difference is now not referred to as the residual, but as the prediction error. So we can now take this prediction error and quantify it in one or the other way. For example, using these metrics that you see down here, like the RMSE, MAR, MAE, MAVE, and so on. So the number 1 procedure that's being used in PLS is PLS predict. And this is a recent advance because it just has been introduced like a couple of years ago, but only last year we have provided like concrete guidelines on how to use this method. So the logic here is similar to what we just saw. We're splitting the data set up into a training sample and a testing sample or holdout sample. Again, training sample is being used for model estimation. Holdout sample is being held out, as the name suggests clearly, and is used for estimating the prediction error. Again, there are different types of prediction statistics that we can use. The common one is the first one here, the root mean squared error of prediction, which just takes the divergence between what we predict and what we observe, takes it to the power of 2, divides it by the number of observations, and then draws the square root of this. So we can also use the MAE, mean absolute error. This has some advantages in some situations, but as I said, the standard metric is actually the RMSE. However, it's not that easy, because PLS predict does not simply divide the data set into a training and holdout sample once, but it does this repeatedly using a procedure called k-fold cross-validation. So in k-fold cross-validation, actually the data set is split up not into 2 parts, like the training holdout sample, but into k different parts. These parts are roughly of the same size. So for example, if we have 2,000 observations, we would set k to 5 where each of these so-called folds or groups, as we can also see them, would have 400 observations. So what's happening now? Well, we have these 5 groups with 400 observations each, and well, now we would take out the first group, use this group as a holdout sample, and estimate the model using the remaining groups. So 1,600 observations would be used for model estimation, 400 observations would be held out, estimate the model, generate the prediction statistics, and then we move to the second fold. In the second fold, we're actually not taking the first group out, but the second group, repeating the entire thing, getting out the prediction statistics. Then we estimate the model again, leaving the third group out. After that, we leave the fourth group out, and finally the fifth group. So each observation has been held out once. This is why it's called k-fold cross-validation. You can imagine that it's like a sheet of paper which you fold into equal parts, and then you take one fold out in each run. So this assessment or assignment of the observations into the different folds is a random process. So it's done randomly, but well, if this is done randomly, there might be some extreme cases. So it could well be that simply because of this random process, you put a very extreme case in the one group. To make sure that this doesn't significantly impact your results, you can run the entire procedure repeatedly. So with R repetitions, and generally we would set R to 10, meaning that we run this k-fold procedure, which I just described, 10 times. So how is such a result being evaluated? Well, there are basically two types of statistics that we look into. We look into the Q square, which is the mean value, and the so-called linear model. Well, why are we looking into these two types of statistics? Well, the reason is that the prediction statistics, like the RMSE and the MAE, are actually depending on the scale of the indicators that you're looking at. So it makes a difference whether we try to predict, let's say, income, or whether we predict a Likert type variable, which is measured on a scale from 1 to 5. Because, you know, scale from 1 to 5, well, there's not too much room for error, right? But if you want to predict income, well, you can be way off. Yeah. So what these two situations have in common, that in RMSE of 0 is the best possible case, but that's not going to happen. So the absolute value of the RMSE doesn't tell us anything. We need some type of standard of comparison. The mean value, the Q square, simply uses the mean value of the training sample to predict the testing sample. This is the most naive thing that you can do. So we're simply using the training sample mean as a standard of comparison. And we want to beat this super naive benchmark. Well, hopefully our results are going to be better than simply taking the mean, right? I mean, there would be no point in setting up the entire model, but we can go one step further. We should look into a linear model. And this linear model just takes the indicators that we seek to predict and uses the exogenous constructs indicators as independent variables to predict this specific indicator. So I'm just going to show you an example to make a case what's happening here. So let's say we have this model here. It doesn't matter what this model is all about. And our target variable is this one here, CUSL, which stands for customer loyalty. CUSL is measured with 3 indicators, CUSL 1, 2, and 3. And let's say we want to predict CUSL 1. So what we can do now in a linear benchmark model is simply using CUSL 1 as the dependent variable in a regression. And the independent variables are the indicators of the exogenous constructs. In this case here, qual, perf, CSOR, and attractiveness. This is a naive benchmark because it simply omits the entire model structure. So everything that's shown here in red is simply ignored. So we ignore that there are different constructs in this model. We ignore that qual 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 belong to one construct, that perf 1 through 5 belong to another construct, and so on. So all of this is ignored. It's a super naive way. We have an input, customer loyalty, or the output, customer loyalty, and we have the input, these indicators of the exogenous constants. So hopefully our PLS model is going to be better than this linear benchmark model. And this is what we test using such a procedure here. So we first look into the Q square value, the training sample, and scale it in such a way that a value of 0 or smaller actually indicates a lack of predictive power. So if this is the case, well, we can basically conclude that the model lacks predictive power. If this Q square is larger than 0, well, there seems to be something going on, but is it good enough in terms of beating the linear model benchmark? So in order to find this out, we need to select first the prediction statistic of interest. So typically we use the RMSE. So if the prediction errors are highly asymmetrically distributed, meaning they don't really follow a nice bell-shaped curve, then there is a good reason to use the MAE, but the typical choice would be the RMSE. Now, what we do, for each indicator of a certain endogenous construct, we compare whether the PLS prediction produces a smaller prediction error than the LM. Yeah, so for each indicator, this is done. Yeah, so if all indicators of a certain construct, yeah, and if you reconsider our previous example, customer loyalty 1, 2, 3, let's say for all these 3 indicators, the PLS model produces a smaller RMSE value than the linear benchmark model. Then we would conclude that the model has high predictive power. If the linear benchmark model is better in terms of prediction for all these indicators, so we would say, well, there's a lack of predictive power. And then we can say have a majority vote. So if the majority of indicators in PLS is better than in LM, then we have medium predictive power, and if the other way around, then we can say that the model has a low predictive power. So I would encourage you very much to look into this procedure. K-fold cross-validation in PLS. K-fold cross-validation is actually a standard procedure which is very popular in data science. So you can also run this in any regression type analysis, and I would encourage you to do that. There's some guideline articles here. First off, the article by Shmueli and colleagues in JBR in 2016, which illustrates the procedure, and then we wrote a joint article in which we set up guidelines in the European Journal of March in 2019. So, another thing that I want to briefly talk about is the act of comparing different models. And this is actually something that can frequently happen in research. So you have a certain theory which can suggest different type of model setups like the ones that you see here. And what we want to do now is we want to actually find the best model in the set, something that is, well, at the heart of science. Yeah, because, well, there are different theories that you can use to explain a certain phenomenon. There are also different contexts. And then we as researchers, we have to make a decision which of the model is the best representation of reality. And there's not this one single model, but there are multiple models that actually might work well. This act of model comparison is actually nothing new. It's frequently done in econometrics, where you often start with what's called an over-parameterized model, so like a saturated model which has all the indicators in, and then you gradually reduce the complexity to arrive at a parsimonious model, a smaller model which fits the data well. There's also good reason from a conceptual perspective to engage in model comparisons, because we as researchers, we are also biased. So for example, when we establish a certain model, we actually have a confirmation bias. So we have a certain idea what this model can look like. We have a certain assumption what the result will be, and then we are just looking for confirming or supporting information, ways to confirm our assumptions. This is a human bias that is simply happening also every day in consumer behavior, but we as scientists, we are also actually affected by this. And Nuso, in a nice article in Nature, said, well, model comparisons are a way to de-bias these assumptions. Yeah, so allow for different comparisons and use these different models and take the model which does the best job in explaining the phenomenon under consideration. There's also been, by the way, emphasized in PLS. Numerous researchers have said that, well, the arrow scheme, the structure model is tentative, and we should understand the model construction process and estimation process as an evolutionary process. Yeah, so it's really about finding the best model in a set of competing models. Well, how do we do this? There are actually metrics that facilitate these model comparisons. This young man here, AIC, is the originator of the seminal metric here called the AIC, stands for Archaic Information Criterion. They're actually framed in terms of the log likelihood, but PLS is not a likelihood-based method. It uses sum of squared errors. All these metrics are also framed as in the way of sum of squared errors, which you can see here on the right-hand side. So you can apply them regardless of whether you're actually using a likelihood-based method or not. So what we were actually interested in one of our research questions was finding out which of these metrics performs best in prediction-oriented model selection. So which of these metrics actually do a good job in selecting a well-fitting model, but this well-fitting model at the same time does a good job in terms of prediction. And when I talk about metrics, I'm not only talking about AIC and BIC, which you can see here on the slide, but there are like hundreds of different metrics. AIC3, AIC4, HQ, and minimum description lengths, and so on. So in our research, we first looked into model fit. And we found out that there are basically two criteria which do a fantastic job in terms of identifying the best fitting model. They're called BIC and GM. At the same time, this was a follow-up research here. We looked into the performance of these metrics in terms of their ability to predict the values of our target constructs. And we found out that the BIC and GM, so if you're actually interested in achieving a sound trade-off between model fit and prediction, use the BIC and GM criteria as a standard of comparison. So how is this done? You can see that here. We have these three models. They produce, for example, these following BIC values. And these BIC values are not scaled in a certain way, like 0 to 1, but we interpret them as the smaller the value, the better the model. So they are just relative metrics. Yeah? So we take a look at these different models and pick the model with the smallest BIC value, which would in this case here be model number 1 with a BIC value of -328. We can actually go one step further and actually compute relative likelihoods of these models. So a weight of evidence for a certain model, and these weights of evidence are actually called archaic weights. And see the different computations here. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but you can just refer to our paper in the Journal of Business Research, which you can see here on the bottom of the slide. So here's an overview of the different papers that I basically talk about in Journal of the Association of Information Systems, Decision Science, and the Journal of Business Research. If you're actually more interested in the first paper, we recorded a nice video on a platform called Latest Thinking, where I describe actually the computation of these different metrics and our corresponding study. Well, finally, some outlook. Obviously, we are still working in that field, and we just published a nice paper on a statistical test which you can use to assess whether one model is significantly better than the other model in terms of prediction. This test is called CVPAT, and it's actually available also as an R code on GitHub. So, 3 key takeaways. First off, if you're interested in causal prediction, which is a fundamental building block of the social sciences, well, composite-based methods excel. I would always suggest using PLS or GESCA in that regard because, well, factor-based methods are grossly unsuitable for prediction. Well, when you talk about prediction, you actually need to assess the predictive power of your models. So in order to do that, rely on PLS Predict, rely on predictive model comparisons, and the newly proposed CVPAT.
Well, thank you very much, Marco Sarstedt, Professor Dr. Marco Sarstedt from Germany. So thank you again, and I'd just like to remind everybody here why it's so special to have Marco here with us, because Marco here is well known for his work on SEM, which is the structural equation modeling using the Smart PLS, and he is also one of the co-founders of Smart PLS Academy. So thank you very much, and we're indeed very, very lucky to have him. Thank you very much again, Marco, once again. Right, ladies and gentlemen, so we've had guests from the Czech Republic, we've had a guest from Turkey, we've had a guest from Germany. Now is the time to get some local representation. So ladies and gentlemen, from all the way from Malaysia, we have with us somebody who is quite famous in his own right, and he represents one of the most important elements that we as academics need, which is publishing. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Mr. William Lowe. So, Mr. William Lowe, how are you, Mr. Lowe? How are you, William? What should we call you? I'll just call you Mr. Lowe. So, Mr. Lowe, how are you today? Feeling good, I hope? All right, awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, just a little bit about William Lowe before we move on. So, Mr. Lowe is the business manager, Southeast Asia for Emerald Publishing. And let's see what he has to say about the world of publishing and how that will affect us all.
In publishing, we recognize our audiences need unique and resources. The world of academia is under increasing pressure and expectation, and the traditional markers of influence, such as citations, are limited. Our role is to help challenge conventional way of thinking, bringing people together to discover, curate, and put into practice research that really matters. Research that has real-world impact goes beyond citation and makes a difference. It's about communities joining together and find solutions that result in positive change. We refer this as impact and provable effects of research in the real world. We appreciate it's not always easy for academics and researchers to see the impact of their work. That's why we launch Real Impact to aid the cause and call on research communities to come together and break down barriers. With sector increasingly full of pressure and expectation, we recognize the challenges faced by colleagues in connecting research to impact. We also recognize that traditional markers of influence, such as citations, are not sufficient to tell the story of impact. Emerald feels strongly that we have a key role and responsibility in not only supporting the impact agenda, but also in challenging outdated approach to measuring effects. We will continue to work with our global author network to publish research which makes a difference and invest further with research community to support the real world change. Before I end, I'd like to thank Connecting Asia Research Network for collaborating with Emerald in the 6th Asia International Conference 2020. Thank you and all best wishes to everyone to stay safe and continue with impact research to make our world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. William Lowe, the business manager for Southeast Asia, for the fascinating insight into the world of publishing. And it's still a world full of mystery to me because I'm always wondering, will my paper be published? Thank you very much once again. Thank you very much once again to Emerald Publishing, the co-host of AIC 2020. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we are live from Connecting Asia Central, right here in Johor, in beautiful, beautiful Malaysia, sunny Malaysia, rainy Malaysia at the moment. And we are now at the last slot of the day. And we're in for a very special treat because we have with us my good friend, Dr. Muhammad Imran Qureshi. Are you there? Dr. Imran, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Awesome. Okay, Dr. Imran. Right, so Dr. Imran, for those of you who may not know him, though I hardly think that there is anyone here who does not know him yet, Dr. Imran is the founding director of Connecting Asia, and without him and the strong support of his team, we will not be here where we are today. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're in for a very, very special treat. So Dr. Imran, you're going to be up very soon, but just before that, let's get to know Dr. Imran just a little bit more with this montage.
Good afternoon and very warm welcome to 6th Asia International Conference 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our next speaker whose name is a worth of 1,000 million conversation. I'm honored and privileged to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Muhammad Imran Qureshi, the founding director of Connecting Asia, founding director of Scholars Asia, president the APRA, and chairperson of INEX. Dr. Muhammad Imran Qureshi is a leading researcher, a true visionary leader with a dynamic personality. He is featured among the world's top 2% scientists, listed by prestigious Stanford University. He previously teaches at ComSat's University, Pakistan, and currently he is serving at University Technical Malaysia, Melaka. He is an enthusiastic academician in the field of operational management. Dr. Qureshi has the ability to adopt new skill sets to sustain in the competitive era. He also has the potential to transfer knowledge to his students using practical pedagogy methodologies. He is specialist in the field of structural equation modeling using AMOS, smart PLS, and quantitative data analysis using NVivo. True education comes from a passion for learning, and Dr. Imran Qureshi does believe these words by heart, as his work is published in world-renowned journals in the area of operational management, environmental management, sustainability, and organizational behavior. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming our man of the hour, Dr. Muhammad Imran Qureshi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah. It's a pleasure to have you with us all the time. Thank you for hosting this event. So I would like to start my presentation with thanking all the speakers who have coming from different countries. I hope so everybody is missing the face-to-face events, but we are in unprecedented situation, and we also would love to do the face-to-face event as soon as possible. But because of this situation, we have to go online, and I would thanks to all my speakers, attendees, participants, and especially the viewers who are watching us on the YouTube live. I'm really thankful for your support and effort. Okay, let's start. This 6th Asia International Conference is unique in its sense. It has a lot of uniqueness, but I will focus on few of these points where it becomes more relevant to the current situation. So 6th Asia International Conference is our signature event every year. We do this conference since 2015, and Connecting Asia is hosting this conference in Kuala Lumpur all the time. And this time, Emerald Publishing is our co-host, and we are also collaborating with the APRA, the Association of Professional Researchers and Academicians, and also Reader Insight Publisher in this conference. So I would like to thank all of my co-organizers, and especially Emerald Publishing, for joining us in the conference and co-hosting the event. Let's see what is significant. Now, in this conference, we more focus on toward digital future beyond COVID-19. That was the basic concept of this conference. So this is very much relevant and very much on time. Let me share a few thoughts why I choose this special theme for this conference and why it is more relevant to the current situation. So what is the current situation? I started my presentation in 2020, all presentation with this famous picture. So guess what is the famous picture of 2020? I hope so everybody knows that Mr. COVID is our famous picture, and it wins the record for being known to all or maybe everybody in the world. So we know we are trapped into this situation and due to the COVID. Now, this situation compels us with so many things, but I would highlight few of them which we are covering in the current conference, and we would like to extend our body of knowledge in this area also. So first, let's see what is the current situation. The current situation is very, very different from what we were considering in the past. So largely, if you see, we are experiencing a digital transformation. Before this, the people were thinking about the digital transformation, and some companies have already planned for digital transformation, but all these plans are now implemented immediately, and those who have not done any planning, they are suffering in their businesses. Businesses have been already reshaped. We know that. We learn how to reduce the cost. We learn how to manage without offices. We learn so many things during this pandemic situation. Now, obviously, the way education has been transformed, everybody have known it, and it is well known fact that education has been drastically reformed during this pandemic situation. And healthcare services, obviously, that was the most important part or most important sector, but also it is the most under pressure sector during this pandemic situation. But still, it is also going through the transformation process, and also societies have adopted new normal. We know that we have to be at the distance, and this particular conference is the evidence that societies have already adopted new normal. So that is what we are doing now. Now let's see the current situation with respect to the business. The business perspective is different. Now, when this situation happens, let me just give you some very clear example of the business. So if you see business life cycle, everybody knows this S curve. So we start our businesses in infancy stage, then we expand and we go to maturity, and at maturity we have to transform our business to another product or bring some innovation. If I showed you this slide in this way, you would understand much better. Okay, so we launch our product, growth, decline, and then we do innovation and bring another product or another business. So this is how we do innovation and how we do our businesses in the normal circumstances. Okay, so when your product or your business is going towards the maturity, at that time you are going to launch a new product, or you have to deal with the innovation process. But what happened? Now this situation, if you understand the S curve, you will understand that the all transformation process is being done during this time when the business is at maturity stage and the new businesses are being emerged or new product are being emerged. So this is how S curve works. So let me show you how this S curve now given us some gaps. For example, now this situation, if some companies were planning for digital transformation, or some organizations, some countries, they were planning for this, but due to this pandemic, what happens? This is what happens. So this process have been cut down. You don't have time. You have to implement whatever you already have. In this case, these two curves, the curve 1 and curve 2, they already created a gap. So you can understand this is the gap. Now this gap can be identified through many other processes, but here I would like to share few of them. The first one, the capabilities, the gap in capabilities. We understand that the people were not ready for the digital transformation or digital ecosystem. So what happens? There are a lot of capabilities which need to be adopted or need to be learned by the individual organization or countries, which is not being done. So that gap is already there. Those organizations or those countries or companies who have already adopted these processes, they are doing very well. But those who were failed to do this, now they are struggling. So capabilities is a real challenge at the country level, at organizational level, or at the individual level also. These capabilities are in terms of everything. So we are trying to see what type of capabilities are lacking in this digital transformation process or this COVID pandemic situation. The second important part was to develop a digital business ecosystem. Now we know businesses are not alone. They work with the supply chain. They work with a lot of other businesses. So one business which is depending on other businesses, how they are going to develop their digital business ecosystem. That is a very important question which we are trying to cover under this AIC 2020. And the final one, and this is my favorite one also, we learned so many techniques, so many new skills, so many new options during this pandemic situation at the country level, at the organization level, at individual level. So all these capability development process, we have learned to counter the unwanted or unprecedented situation. But now the real question is, what is the future? How we are going to continue with that? Are we going to shift to the normal situation or normal practices which we were doing before the pandemic, or we are going to change it in a very different way? Now, this is a real question which everybody is going to ask. This question is also we are covering under AIC 2020 theme. So these three major questions which make this AIC 2020 more relevant for everybody, because we are trying to document all these questions in all these areas. For example, we are covering economics and business side, we are covering mainly education, and we are covering IT and also management side. So all these sides have been covered during this research conference. So in that case, we are trying to understand what capabilities we need, how we can develop a business or digital business ecosystem, and how to retain those capabilities which we already learned during this situation, and how we are going to use them in the post-pandemic situation. So this is the most important part. If you see, this is very much relevant to our theme for the conference, toward digital future beyond COVID-19. So this is the main focus of our conference, and that is where we are going to conduct a special strategic forum where we have invited very renowned speaker around the globe on 20th December 2020. So this would be a panel discussion where you will see people talking about this digital future and how we can answer these three major questions in our AIC 2020. At the same time, we have special issues in different journals. For example, we have special issue in sustainability, we have special issue in applied economics, and we have also special issue with the Foresight Emerald Journal. All these special issues are covering these three questions. That would be a very important aspect of our conference, and we will welcome all those papers which are covering these areas. We will try to publish them in these special issues in order to get our output documented in terms of research article and research publication. Now, tomorrow we are going to have our sessions. So in the sessions we have keynote speakers. These are the list of our keynote speakers. As you can see, we have keynote speakers from different countries. Our guests or dignitaries, the speakers are renowned scholars, have already delivered 10 workshops which you have already seen. And today we were ending our workshop session with Professor Marco's workshop, and that the world famous scholar in Smart TLS. So we have tried to give you an experience of that conference which you never forget. So we give you 10 different workshops where you can learn according to your requirement and according to the future of the business. And also we are providing you the keynote speaker in the session, so you can learn from them also. You can ask questions, you can interact with them. And also we have our session chairs. All these people are basically our session chairs, so you can see they are well-renowned personalities, and we thankful to all support them. Always need support from you and all those who are watching. So that is why we are progressing. We have developed our capabilities, and we always try to give you the maximum or the best options what we can do in our domain and within our expertise. So that is where AIC have a unique name. So, and it is also, I must say, the most participated conference in Malaysia. I hope everybody will be enjoying their sessions tomorrow, and they would be an experience they are never going to forget in AIC 2020. Thank you very much, and I hope everybody will be our will be enjoying their sessions tomorrow, and day after tomorrow they have to they have opportunity to see the strategic forum. So we welcome you all and thank you very much for your support always since 2015. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Imran, for the very informative talk. I really enjoyed that. And it was about the digital transformation of organizations and how it affects us all. And this is especially true in the post-COVID-19 world that we live in today. So once again, Dr. Imran, thank you very much, my friend, for your sharing session. And we know that you have a lot more to give later on. So, ladies and gentlemen, it appears that we have come to the end of the program for today. So there are a few housekeeping things that I would have to remind you of before we end today. First of all is that tomorrow, don't forget that tomorrow presentations start at 9 a.m. Don't be late, remember 9 a.m. sharp, and tomorrow please stay for the closing ceremony, which is going to be happening at 5 p.m. Malaysian time. And why should you stay besides it being something cool to do? Well, you should stay because we will be announcing the winners, and I know that you want to know who won all those prizes. And talking about prizes, we have exciting prizes to give away tomorrow as well for those members of our audience who can answer a few questions. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Connecting Asia TV, and don't forget to like Facebook. As always, don't forget to like us on Facebook. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today, and I'm hoping that you enjoyed today as much as I did. My name is Dr. Abdullah Muhammad Nawi, Dr. A, signing off, and I will see you again tomorrow. But before we do that, a huge shout out to our media team, our technical team headed by Mr. Noman. Great job, guys, and that was awesome. And everybody, if you can give a virtual clap to these people, please do so. They've been working so hard. Everybody here at Connecting Asia has been working so hard, and I will see you again. We will all see you again tomorrow. Don't be late. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and bye bye. We'll see you tomorrow.